Hey everyone, I am back. It's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. I hope that you have had an amazing week. For those of you who are new to Mental Health Moment, welcome. We are here every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here live on Black Women Empowered Incorporated Facebook page, YouTube, and LinkedIn Live. And for those of you watching the replay on Dr. Nikisha Hammond YouTube, welcome and thanks so much for joining here. And today I'm in Virginia. Actually, just drove here from Maryland up the street, it seems like. But nonetheless, I do reside in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. But today I am in Virginia on some business. So there's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. Welcome, welcome. Let me know where you're tuning in from today. Thanks again for those who are starting to join here. And bear with me, you all, my voice today, because between the travel, I've been in so many different climates over the past, I think, 2 weeks, from Florida, which is warmer most of the time. And then I went to Mexico, which was also warm. And then I was in a cold climate and then another cold climate. So it's been a little crazy. And then my son was sick. So all of that combined, here I am coming down with something. But hopefully it'll be quick and I can get over it quickly. But nonetheless, 10 lessons that I learned from my first root canal, which was unplanned. And yeah, I'm going to share with you some lessons I learned though, because a lot of times, whatever it is that we're going through in life, or whether you're going through a dark time, a happy time, a kind of in between time, or whatever it is you're going through, life just pops up a lot of surprises, right? We know that. So the good news is, though, it's hard. This is not easy advice, but the good news is a lot of times we can learn lessons though from these experiences, whether they're amazing, whether they're mediocre, whether they're difficult to deal with. Usually there's some lesson in what we're going through. Excuse me here, you guys, as I'm trying to get over this cold thing or whatever it is that's creeping up on me. So 10 lessons I learned from my first root canal, which happened a couple weeks ago. Number one, a lot of times it is the fear of the unknown that you were worried about. I have to tell you really quick about the root canal situation. First of all, I was not planning to do that day. I was going back into a follow-up from another procedure from my dentist, who then essentially said, hey, by the way, you got to get a root canal and we're going to send you to someone today, which was not the plan, because the next day I was leaving to Mexico for a conference I was speaking at. And nonetheless, my plans obviously changed. So this individual, Dr. Waltz, he was the endodontist, which I quickly learned what that meant. It's a person, well, in his case, he specializes in root canals. That's all he does all day. He essentially told me at the beginning of the procedure, because don't get me wrong, you all, I believe I'm a strong person. Like, I could take a lot of things. However, I was not prepared mentally, nor did I really was in the mood to get a root canal. Some of you may have had this procedure before, but this was my first time, so I was terrified. I'm not gonna lie. But he reminded me, and that's my first tip for you all, that it's really a fear of the unknown, right? Like that's really the root of why I was scared. Like I never had the procedure before, right? So I'm making up things in my head. What could happen? What if this goes wrong? Like all these sorts of things. And a lot of times this is what we do in our lives. Like we have a lot of thoughts about things that, first of all, the research shows will never happen. We just have a lot of fears of the unknown. We make up things in our head of what could go wrong and what could happen and this, right? Like, but they're probably not even going to happen, but it's a fear of the unknown. So I want you to keep that in mind when you think about, and granted, some of your anxiety sometimes is rightly so. Some of the things that we're nervous about is true, could come true, right? But a lot of what we are nervous about is not even going to come true. The 10 lessons I learned from my first root canal. Number one, it's the fear of the unknown. That's what causes a lot of issues in our lives. Number two, life will always throw you curveballs, but you have to prioritize yourself first. Okay, that's honestly like been a theme in my life over the last couple of years, which has worked out pretty well, I must admit. But it's hard sometimes, right? Because we have all these other things going on. I will admit to you that day when they're like, hey, you have to get a root canal. Well, I had already had things that I was planning to do that day. By the way, you all, I had a really important meeting I had other things on my schedule of things that I needed to do that day. And I have to admit, like the first, almost the first thought I had, I was like, wait a minute, I got something I got to do. Like, and it was like, and then I had to stop myself and be like, wait a minute, I have to make myself my number one priority right now. Like, it's my health, it's my dental health. And I was having this, well, which I didn't realize what it was, but it was basically nerve pain. And it was just very jarring. It was very I had really bad sensitivity to cold and hot things every time I ate. I was getting toothaches, I was taking Tylenol, like it was a lot. You all, right? And they're like, listen, you have to do this today. So just a reminder, you all, that a lot of times we tend to not put ourselves first, right? Maybe you're putting work first, maybe you're putting family first, maybe you're putting somebody else in your life first, or whatever it is. Not that those things are not important. Very important. All the things we have that we are blessed with, they're very important things. But you have to make yourself your number one priority so you can show up as the best version of who you are for those people around you, for yourself and those people around you, right? So obviously I rescheduled the meeting. It was okay. Life went on. And I got the root canal done. The third thing that I learned from my root canal experience was that people are really there to support you. So for those of you, some of you are in a great space where you're like, man, I'm blessed with supportive people around me, which is amazing. Some of you are in a space right now where you're like, I don't feel supportive. I feel really alone in my life. What I will tell you in either case is to remember that there just really are people that want to support you. So during this root canal procedure, which again I was terrified about, um, the endodontist who did the root canal and his assistant were, thank goodness, the most amazing people. Like, he had the best bedside manner. He basically held my hand without physically holding my hand, if you know what I mean. Just very calm, explaining the procedure. The assistant was like, "It's okay to be nervous. Like, we gonna get through this together." Like that kind of attitude, and it was so helpful for me, because I was fearful of the process. So I want you to remember that in your life, your root canal, not literally, but whatever that thing is, whatever experience you're dealing with, if you're dealing with a loss, if you're dealing with, whether it's a loss of a job, whether it's grief from losing someone, whether it's difficulties on your job, difficulties with your family, like whatever it is, your root canal, right? Whatever that thing is, they're like, whoa, what's happening? I'm overwhelmed. This is stressful and I'm nervous about it. Just know there are people that are there to support you, right? These were strangers. I never met these people before in my life, but they were there to support. And I strongly believe that there are people there that can be supportive of you. But sometimes you have to look for them. There's many things that all of us go through many different challenges, right? In different ways. But when you are working on your healing journey, and for some of you, you're like, nope, I don't want to share anything, which is fine. For some of you, you're like, yes, I'm in a healed enough place where I can share this and help someone else. Either way is right. Like, there's not a right or wrong, right? You do what's best for you first and your mental health. And also, if you're in a space and you have the bandwidth where you can help others, that's amazing. Please do that as well. The next thing, number 4 on this list, is that mindset is key. Um, Mindset is key. So self-talk, really, really important. So what helped me during this procedure, during the root canal, in my case, was that this endodontist was so good at like preparing me for the next thing, right? So he would say like, hey, the drill, like the not dentist, but the endodontist drill that he was using, he was like, hey, right now it's going to sound screechy. Right now it's going to feel bumpy. Right now you're going to hear this sound. Like, he was preparing me each step of the way. And also, I was preparing myself at the same time too with my self-talk, because like I said, it just wasn't overly pleasant, but I had to say, okay, like, whatever your mantra is, whatever you tell yourself. So for me, I was like, you can do this, like, keep going, like, and then they would be like, it's halfway done. I'm like, okay, it's halfway done. Like, you're halfway there. Like, right. Like, I was like, like cheering myself on almost like through this procedure. And then there was a point I will never forget. I was like, thank you, Lord. Where they were like, we got like 10 minutes left. And I was like, yes. Right. Like, yes, it's almost over. Right. The torture's almost over. But honestly, though, they really helped me through the procedure. But mindset is key, right? That's something else for you to remember. Your self talk, what you're telling yourself through the difficult times, are really important. Now, today, if you're just not tuning in, we're talking about 10 lessons I learned from my first root canal experience. That was unplanned. But number four on the list is really making sure your mindset, that you're working on your own mindset, that you're working on the self talk that you have through these, whatever your root canal is, right? Whatever your difficult situation is, as I was able to really talk myself through that procedure. Number five is sometimes it seems worse than it really is. So at the end of the root canal, after I realized how much pain it relieved and the benefits of it. And again, I am not an endodontist. I'm not here to tell you in real life have that root canal or not. Like, please reach out to the dental professionals that can tell you what to do. But a broader theme to think about in your life is sometimes what we're going through seems worse than it really is. But at the end of the day, when we learn the lessons, when we get through, the situation, when you learn what you're learning from it, right, it can just make things better. And what happened to me in my particular case, like I mentioned, was this was the day before I was heading to, like, I was leaving in the morning to Cancun, to speak at a conference and attend a conference out there, a speakers conference. So the dentist that referred me to the endodontist was like, because I was nervous and all the things, I had to go to another location, all these things that day that was unplanned. And he was like, listen, because I was like, I have to hop on a flight tomorrow. Like, will I be okay? And this and that. He's like, listen, you're really going to want to get this procedure done before you hop on that flight, because otherwise you're going to be miserable on this trip. And he was absolutely right. He was absolutely right. So again, sometimes things seem worse than they are, but at the end of the day, I was happy that yes, I wasn't in pain every time I was eating during that trip. Uh, number six, and thanks for still starting to join here. Number six is there's a lot of times in your life where you may be in pain physically or emotionally or whatever type of pain you're going through, but you don't even realize the amount of pain you're in until you have the relief, right? So how many of you, and you can put in the chat if you've ever experienced this, like when you really take a break, whether it's on a vacation, whether you're just taking a minute, whether you're taking some downtime, like you um you feel so calm and you're like, man, I didn't even know how stressed out I was, right? Like, has that ever happened to you? If it has, put yes in the chat, right? But I know that's definitely happened to me many times where I'm like, man, like when your body really relaxes and you're like, man, I didn't even realize how stressed out I was, or I didn't even realize how overwhelmed I was. That's a real phenomenon. What happened when I had the root canal after the fact, I realized, man, like I knew I was in pain, but I was almost getting used to it a little bit. I mean, don't get me wrong. But yeah, when I was, drinking cold water or whatever it was, and I'd be like, like, because the sharp pain, I was almost in a weird way starting to get used to it. I still felt it, but I was starting to get used to it. But once the pain went away, I was like, man, because there was a part of me, I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I'm embarrassed to admit, but I'm gonna admit it to y'all. There was a part of me, I told my husband at one point, I was like, you know what? Because it was a possibility I had to have the root canal, but it was like 2 weeks before I went to the follow-up appointment. I was like, I'm good. Like, I could just tough it out. It's fine. Like, I don't need a root canal. I was trying to psych myself up, y'all. However, once I got the procedure done and I felt the relief of the pain, I was like, why in the world would I have ever thought that I could continue with that level of pain? So I didn't even, like, I knew, but I didn't know until I had that relief. And a lot of y'all, someone said, yes, indeed. A lot of y'all shared in the comments, like, yes, you know you know how it feels after the fact. So, which is why it's so important, you all, and I stress this so much on Mental Health Moment. You have to make sure that you're checking in with yourself often, right? You really have to make sure. And I'll even admit, like today, that's a whole nother mental health moment. But today I was driving from Maryland to Virginia, where I'm at now, and there's been a lot of things happening over the last couple of weeks, so my stress level was kind of high. Like when I checked in with myself, I'm like, wow, I am really overwhelmed. So what I did though, because when you check in with yourself and you ask yourself like, how am I doing? What do I need? Then you're like, okay, what do I need to do? Right. So for me, on the drive over, I saw oh gosh, I hope I pronounced it correctly. It's like I want to say it's like Shenandoah Valley or Shenandoah National Park or something like that. Which I was like, oh, I didn't know. I was driving by. I was like, let me check out this park. Little did I know, I think it's like 100 miles long or something like that. But nonetheless, I did not drive the whole entire way, but I drove a little bit of it, and it was so calming for me because that's my thing. And I always tell you guys to check in with yourself, like, what is it that is calming for you, right? For me, one of the things is spending time in nature. So getting out there, like it was beautiful, you all. Like it was so beautiful, like the trails and the mountains and the valleys, like just a gorgeous place. And I had never been there before, so I was like snapping all my pictures, along the way, stopping at the it's like a I don't know, like a trail or whatnot you can drive through or walk or camping sites and all that. But obviously, I was driving through, and there's a lot of different places to stop and take pictures. So I took a lot of pictures. It was stunningly beautiful, and it was something that was really calming for me, and it was something I needed, but I didn't even realize it. Like I checked in, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of overwhelmed, stressed out. There's a lot going on. But then after I got there, I was like, I got some vitamin D. The sun was shining, the weather was good. I just felt really calm. Like that's like I said, my calm place. You have to know for you what are the things that make you calm. But that was so helpful. So again, yeah, someone said driving is the best. Um, but again, just remember that you sometimes you don't realize the pain you're in until you kind of take the step back and you have the relief, right? So I want to remind you of that. Number 7. So we got a couple more to go, y'all. But number 7 is jot down your life lessons. So I literally was on a plane. Well, actually, it was the day after the root canal. When I was on the plane heading to Cancun, I jotted these things down because I'm like, you know what? That was a terrifying experience, or so I thought. It was better than I thought it would be, the root canal. But let me jot down what I learned from this. So whether you're a writer, maybe some of you are a writer, or maybe some of you draw. I don't have that skill, but if you're an artist, you draw things out, you write it out. If you want to leave a voice note in your phone, however it is for you that you can express yourself, then it doesn't have to be this long essay, but just a quick note to yourself, like, what did you learn from whatever experience that you're going through, right? Because again, there's a lot of things that happen to us that are really blessings in disguise. I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying it was a fun experience to get the root canal, but I will say that I'm glad. Well, I'm glad to be out of pain, obviously, but I'm also glad that I was able to learn some life lessons out of it. We're actually on number 8 right now, but we're talking about 10 life lessons that I learned from having my first root canal, which was completely unplanned. Um, and number 8 is that you are stronger than you think. So number 8 is you are stronger than you think. Um, there was a part of me, I'm just being honest with y'all. There was a part of me that literally I didn't think I was gonna be able to do it, you all. I'm telling you, like I'm not a person that's terrified of the dentist. I don't have that fear, but the root canal, because I didn't know I was getting the procedure that day. Because otherwise, which also might have been a blessing in disguise, because I probably would have been on Google looking up everybody's horrible experience and all that sort of thing, which you psych yourself out even more. So none of that happened. Um, but I got there, and there's this thing called what is it called? I wrote it down. It's like a dental dam or something like that. Anyways, they have to put this like rubbery type material in your mouth. Like they have to put a clamp on your tooth if you've never had this procedure before. Put this like rubber type of material in your mouth, but it kind of covers up because they have to only work in one area and isolate the tooth and all that. But for me, it felt a little bit like it was blocking my breathing. So I'm not gonna lie, when the assistant first was putting the clamp on my tooth and connecting this like rubber type piece of material in my mouth, and I'm like, feeling like I'm suffocating almost. I like took it out immediately. I was like, whoa, whoa, what's going on here? And she was like, okay, She was the sweetest lady, by the way. But she was like, "Okay, listen, here's the choice. Either we do this here today, or you can come back with sedation." And I was like, "Whoa, like, hold on a second, right?" Where they sedate you and you don't even know what's going on, which for me was definitely not an option. So I was like, you know what? Hold on a second. Give me a second. Let me mentally prepare for this. I had to put on my psychologist hat, you all. And I was like, I could do that. Like, let me say a short prayer. Like, let me get in a better mindset to like get this procedure done today. But obviously, you guys know the end of the story. I obviously got the procedure done. So we redid. She had to redo the whole thing or whatever the setup. And I was able to get it done. But again, it was a lot of self talk, honestly, because it was just uncomfortable and it felt a little claustrophobic for me. And I was like, oh, I don't know if that part was the worst for me. But nonetheless, reminding yourself that you are stronger than you think. Number nine. So we got two more to go, you all. So number nine is that timing is divine. Timing is divine. If you struggle with patience, trust me, I know. I really get that life. But if you're in a season right now where you're like you're struggling with patience or you're struggling with trust or that sort of thing, please remember that timing is divine. Like things happen in the time frame that they're supposed to happen. So I think of that because that day, like I said, was completely unplanned. But I was like, man, I just happened to go in the day before, right? I just happened to go into the follow up with the dentist the day before I'm supposed to leave on this trip, right? I didn't know the outcome was going to be like, hey, we're going to send you, 20, 30 minutes away to a completely different office to have this procedure done. But I'm glad the timing worked out that way rather than me going on this trip. I would have been completely miserable because the pain was getting worse and worse by the day. I mean, if you leave something like that, nerve pain and all the things untreated, it could lead to all these other type of issues. Like the timing was really, um, the timing was really perfect. Number 10. So the 10th thing for you to remember as I wrap up here is that remember that remember to have gratitude in everything. Okay. So I had to remember again, I wasn't like overly excited about this procedure here, but I was remembering though to really have gratitude in everything. And I really did after the fact, not the before though. Not the before. I had a little bit of fear at the before, but the after part, I was like, man, I'm so grateful. Thank you, God. Like, I mean, you just start to put things in perspective sometimes too, right? We have to put things in perspective. Am I wishing a root canal on anyone? No, absolutely not. But at the same time, like sometimes, like we get really focused on one particular thing that's happened in our lives. But when we take a step back and we really look at the bigger picture and really realize how blessed we are, like we have to have gratitude. Because when I took a step back and I was like, man, like I'm stressing out about this root canal, but let me take a step back and understand how healthy I am otherwise, how blessed I am with friends and family, how amazingly like there's so many blessings. Like let me focus on that. Right. So I want you to remember again, have gratitude in everything and everything. And remember, sometimes you gotta take a step back because the thing is you are with yourself all day long, you are with your thoughts, right? All day long. The things you stress about, the things you think about. It's really easy to be here and have tunnel vision on our problems. But when you stop being here and start being here and looking at your life differently, having a different perspective of like, wait a minute, instead of let me look at my problem, my problem, let me look at my blessing over here, my blessing over here, my blessing over here, my blessing over here. Like that's a different perspective. And it takes time. It takes time to make that mental shift. But yeah, but it really is life changing. But however, having gratitude throughout the journey, so important. So yes, so that is what I shared last week with you all. But again, as I mentioned, for some reason, technology wanted to do what it wanted to do. But again, so those are my 10 lessons that I learned from my first root canal procedure. But I really again I encourage you to think about how do you whatever you're going through. I know sometimes it's really difficult, but how do you take a step back and look at like what life lesson did I learn from this, right? What life lesson did I get from this? How can I stay grateful? How can I stay uplifted? How can I stay motivated, right? To get through. And I'm not saying every day is going to be easy. I can't promise that. I don't have that magic wand that I want to make everything easy. But what I can share is when you change your perspective, when you change your mindset, when you start focusing on you and making yourself your number one priority, life looks a lot different. Yep. Someone said I said this to myself today to be grateful for the good things in life. Yes. So as I wrap up here, if you guys need anything at all, feel free to go to drnikishahammond.com, or you can connect with me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you're at on social media. I'm usually sending out some sort of mental health resources on there. If you're on Instagram, Dr. Hammond, I did document, as I always do, my Take a Minute, which today was in Shenandoah, I hope I said that right, Valley, that national park. So I did, share some pictures of my stories as usual with my travels and my nature walks and all those sorts of things. So if you need a little, pick me up, you can head over there. But other than that, I will see you all next Tuesday right here on Black Women Empowered Incorporated Facebook page, YouTube, and link. Have an amazing week, you all. Be blessed. And I'll see you all next week. Bye, guys.